Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Let my prayer arise in thy sight as incense, and let the lifting up of my hands be an evening sacrifice. Let my prayer arise in thy sight as incense, and let the lifting up of my hands be an evening sacrifice.
Hello, I'm Archbishop Scott McLaughlin, and this video is an instructional video for how to sense an altar. During this video, we'll show you step by step how to sense the altar, different types of censers, different types of incense, and work you through step by step so that you can correctly, in the Western traditional method, sense both a fixed altar, like the one behind me, and also a freestanding altar, which is sometimes seen in some churches. Just a few words about the use of incense altogether. The prophet Malachi in the first chapter records the voice of the Lord saying, "My name shall be great among the Gentiles, and in every place incense shall be offered unto my name." Incense, in fact, has been used throughout the history of the worship of God, both as a way of honoring Him and also as a way of praying to Him. In fact, in Exodus chapter 30, God provides a recipe for the kind of incense that He wishes to be used in His worship. And in 2 Chronicles chapter 29, we are told it is a sin not to burn incense in the worship of God. And so incense has been used in the church, both in the Old Covenant and, of course, also in the New Covenant. We know from St. John's writings in the Apocalypse that the burning of incense represents, in a sacramental sense, the prayers of the saints. And we'll talk more about this as we learn how to sense an altar, because the incensation of the altar and of the people in the church represents our gathering together in prayer before Him, but it is also a sacramental way by which we set forth our prayers with the saints in heaven. Earlier I mentioned that the use of incense is connected to prayer, and prayer especially gathered together with the saints in heaven. In order to understand how to sense an altar, we have to understand how altars were set up in the ancient church and how it symbolizes the prayers of the saints. Now, this is a wooden altar behind me. Because it's made of wood, it's not considered to be a permanent altar, even though it weighs a ton to move. In a great church in Europe, perhaps one built in the Middle Ages, this altar would be made of marble. And underneath this altar would be buried a saint of the church. In fact, in many instances, the saint buried underneath the altar was the patron saint of the church. Not only that, but on the grating or shelving behind the altar, relics of the saints were also placed between each of the candles. You can see it's Christmas time here, so we have poinsettias between the candles. But again, in a traditional church, between the candles were relics of the saints. Typically, the Old Testament saints would be on the Epistle side of the altar, while the New Testament saints' relics and statuary or pictures would be on the Gospel side of the altar. This is important to understand when we're contemplating how the censer is swung during the censing of an altar. You will actually see how the prayers of the saints, represented by the relics underneath the altar and on the grating behind the altar, are represented in the swings of the censer. There are two different types of censers that are used in Western liturgical tradition. The most traditional type is hung on 3 chains with the top of the censer pulled up on a middle chain. These are quite nice, but of course they can become very tangled up. And so the modern version for a censer, or thurible as it's also called, is on 1 chain and the lid is simply lifted here. The danger with this, of course, is that with burning charcoal inside, this can become very hot. So both of them have their pros and cons. So we have the thurible, or censer, and with it typically comes the thing that holds the incense, which is called a boat. This set here, you can see that we have incense in the boat with the spoon. The more traditional style, the boat is shaped like something I picture as Aladdin's lamp, again with a spoon. And this boat actually has pure incense in it. Incense is one of the most valuable commodities of the ancient world. It's actually the gum of a tree that grows in the Arabian desert. And so when Jesus was given frankincense by the Magi, when he was an infant, that was a very costly gift. And of course, it symbolizes that prayer would be made to Christ as the Son of God. So what we're going to do now is prepare one of these censers with the lighting of charcoal. So Gabe, if you would bring this over and set it here. And raise the lid up, please. Very good. You order the self-lighting charcoal from any Christian supply house. The charcoal is loaded with bits of gunpowder so that it quickly lights the entire coal. Use these things to protect yourself. And you can see by the sparks that the charcoal will light itself very quickly. And then put it into the censer. Give it about 10 minutes, and just like a regular charcoal grill, once the charcoal is grayed over, it's ready to use. Okay, you can close the lid. You need to have a place where the censer can hang while you're waiting, but of course another way to get the charcoal to light quicker if you're running late is to swing it, because like any fire, if it's given oxygen, it will burn quicker. And we'll light a piece of charcoal for our other thurible here. Inside of the thurible is a cup that actually holds the charcoal so that after you're done it can be easily disposed. In Italy, when I was celebrating the Eucharist in a Roman Catholic church, and asked that incense, or rather charcoal, be prepared for me, The sacristan, who must have been in his 90s, was so pleased that incense would be used in worship. I saw him actually pick up one of these pieces of charcoal with his fingers and light it while he was holding it in his hand. I don't suggest that you do that. Another thing that will happen is that the force of the gunpowder, as it lights, will put out the lighter here. Some people use a candle and light a candle also and put the charcoal over. So in just a few moments, the charcoal will be ready, and we'll show you the traditional method for putting the incense into the thurible, and we'll begin our series of lessons about censing the altar. Our charcoal is ready, it's grayed over. And so we have an acolyte here to assist. Notice that he has opened the lid of the thurible and is holding it up for the celebrant to put the incense into it. And only priests and bishops, because the incense is going to be blessed, should do this. You can take the boat from the thurifer, and it's traditional to put 3 spoonfuls of incense into the thurible. Hold that up a little bit higher. 1, 2, 3. We're burning pure incense here. You can hold the boat back to the acolyte, and then you bless the incense. And the traditional blessing for the first incensation in a service is to say, "Blessed be thou, in whose honor thou art to be burned." Remember, the burning of incense, I'll take that now. The burning of incense is the honor and worship to God, especially in connection with the prayers of the saints. And so that blessing, "Blessed be thou, in whose honor thou art to be burned," assumes that you are celebrating the feast day of a saint. Or at least you are burning it in honor of the patron saint of the parish. We're filming this at Christ Anglican Church, and so the incense has been blessed in honor of him. You will see also in the second incensation where the same thing is done. Now we want to talk about the different kinds of swings that are used with the censer. First of all, of course, if you were simply walking in procession, you would simply hold the censer by the rings and let it come down to your side, gently swinging it as you walk. When you are ready to cense the altar or to cense individuals in the sanctuary, using this middle ring as a guide, lift the thurible up just below this ring, and holding it close to your chest, begin the swings. There are 2 types of swings used in incensation, and we'll show you this at the altar. The most basic, of course, is a single swing, which is a single impulse of your wrist. However, there are such things as double swings, where there are 2 impulses of your wrist. Whether it's a single swing or a double swing, you can see soon when we cense the altar how they are counted as swings. Procession, the thurifer, the one handling the thurible, goes just ahead of the processional cross, just as you see Gabe behind me, and the censer actually leads the way in the procession. And the way that the censer is to be handled is to be straight down by your side and swung very gently as you walk. So we'll process down the center aisle of this church. And you can see that we're just swinging the censer back and forth very gently, actually keeping the charcoal alive and burning incense as we go towards the altar. If you remember before, I talked about the fact that burning incense is a sacramental act, whereby we honor God and worship Him, and that our prayers as a Christian community also enter into heaven and are mixed, if you will, there in heaven with the prayers of the saints. And this is represented in a traditional altar by the use of relics. I told you that in many ancient churches, the saint, perhaps even the patron saint of the church, was buried underneath the main altar of the church. Also, on the mensa, the top of the altar, can be placed an altar stone, and you will also see altar stones in place in old altars, and it too is a marble stone which has relics sealed inside of it. So we have, in a traditional sense, a saint who is praying with us, perhaps the patron of the church, buried in the church, more relics of saints on the mensa or top of the altar, and relics of the saints on the grating between the candles. But the greatest relic of all, of course, would be a relic of our Lord Jesus Christ Himself. And in a traditional church, the main altar crucifix always contained a relic of the true cross. And so incensation begins with an appeal to God, the Son Himself, to begin with, by censing the greatest relic that any church could have. So the incensation proceeds with double swings towards the cross, and then proceeds on the epistle side towards where the relics would be on the grating, across the mensa or top of the altar, where the altar stone would be on the top of the altar, and then proceeds on the gospel side in the same fashion. So that in a sense we are making a complete circuit of the altar, just as if it were pulled out from the wall. And we'll demonstrate this at this time. So Gabe, if you'll bring the censer and the boat. Three spoonfuls again. Blessed be thou, in whose honor thou art to be burned. Okay, take that out. So again, holding the end of the chain, I'm right-handed, so I'm holding it in my left hand, and holding the censer close to the top, I'm bringing it up chest level. The crucifix receives 3 double swings. So, coming up to the center of the altar to the crucifix, we're simply lifting the censer up and making 2 impulses of the wrist as 1 double swing. 1, 2, 3. The rest of the swings on the altar are single swings. And we'll go through this several times so you get the sequence of it. And for each swing, I'm going to number them for you so that you can see the traditional style of 25 swings in censing an altar. So again, we begin at the crucifix with 3 double swings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We're done with the epistle side. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. We have censed the grating and also the mensa. And now we'll proceed to cense the bottom of the altar. 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. So let's take that as one fluid motion again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. One fluid motion again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. And we begin at the crucifix with 3 double swings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We're done with the Epistle sign. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. We have censed the grating and also the mensa. And now we'll proceed to cense the bottom of the altar. 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. So let's take that as one fluid motion again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Right? After the altar is incensed, the clergy in the sanctuary and their assistants are also incensed, and then the people in the church as well. Bishops receive 3 double swings. So Gabe is going to pretend to be a bishop here, and I'm the thurifer. I'll bow to him, he will bow back, and then 3 double swings are given to the bishop. Bow again. And you begin with bishops, and then you proceed to the priests and their seniority, then to deacons, and then to the people. So a priest would receive, if Gabe were a priest, 2 double swings. Deacons receive a single swing, as do the laity. And there are 2 different ways that the laity are censed. One is simply to proceed into the nave and bowing to the people, and they should respond with a bow to the thurifer. He would cense on each side and in the center, and bowing again. Alternatively, he could walk straight down the center aisle of the church, and in each side, proceeding from one side to the other, make single swings towards the pews as he walks down the center aisle of the church. Returning back in procession, holding the censer at the side as we showed you, returning to the altar. The altar is censed at the beginning of the service, and the clergy in the sanctuary and also the people. In the second incensation, the gifts on the altar after the table is set are censed along with the incensation again of the entire altar. And also the clergy and the people also may be censed a second time if you should so choose to do so. Now it's time for the second incensation. After the table is set and we're pretending that we have the gifts prepared here for purposes of instruction. Again, the thurifer would bring the censer to you along with the boat. second incensation, the blessing, is done at the intercession of St. Michael the Archangel, who's the guardian angel, of course, of the people of God. At the intercession of St. Michael the Archangel, blessed be thou, in whose honor thou art to be burned. Amen. In censing the gifts, we are essentially making certain that the entire area covered by the corporal is censed, and we are making 3 crosses. And so I'll again call out numbers for the swings of the censer, beginning at the back of the corporal, bringing it forward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 3 crosses. You can see back to front, side to side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then 3 circles are made covering the entire area of the mensa that the corporal covers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The last turn being clockwise. Then you proceed with the incensation again of the altar. So again, 3 double swings towards the crucifix. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. You may then also proceed to cense the clergy in the sanctuary again, and also the people if you wish to do so. Now it's time for the second incensation. After the table is set and we're pretending that we have the gifts prepared here for purposes of instruction, again the thurifer would bring the censer to you along with the boat. At the second incensation, the blessing is done at the intercession of St. Michael the Archangel, who's the guardian angel, of course, of the people of God. At the intercession of St. Michael the Archangel, blessed be thou, in whose honor thou art to be burned. Amen. In censing the gifts, we are essentially making certain that the entire area covered by the corporal is censed, and we are making 3 crosses. And so I'll again call out numbers for the swings of the censer, beginning at the back of the corporal, bringing it forward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 3 crosses. You can see back to front, side to side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then 3 circles are made covering the entire area of the mensa that the corporal covers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The last turn being clockwise. Then you proceed with the incensation again of the altar. So again, 3 double swings towards the crucifix. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. You may then also proceed to cense the clergy in the sanctuary again, and also the people if you wish to do so. In censing the gifts, we are essentially making certain that the entire area covered by the corporal is censed, and we are making 3 crosses. And so I'll again call out numbers for the swings of the censer, beginning at the back of the corporal, bringing it forward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 3 crosses. You can see back to front, side to side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then 3 circles are made covering the entire area of the mensa that the corporal covers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The last turn being clockwise. Then you proceed with the incensation again of the altar. So again, 3 double swings towards the crucifix. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. You may then also proceed to cense the clergy in the sanctuary again, and also the people if you wish to do so. Thus far we have been talking about the incensation of an altar fixed against the east wall of a church. However, we also know that in some traditions freestanding altars are used, and so we want to provide practical instruction for how to cense an altar that is not against the wall. There are 2 ways of doing this depending on how traditional the parish is in regards to the setup of the altar. Here we have a freestanding altar with a crucifix positioned in the back of it like a traditional eastward facing altar. If this were complete, this would also have 3 candles on each side of the crucifix, but for purposes of instruction, we're simply leaving just the crucifix on the altar by itself. Under these conditions in a traditional setting, the incensation of the altar is very much like what we've learned in regards to an eastward facing altar, except that you are making a counterclockwise circuit around the entire altar. So you would begin again with 3 double swings towards the crucifix, and then making the swings around the altar. Watch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. It's the same number of swings, basically in the same directions, except for the second triplet of swings is done from the back of the altar. but the number of swings remains the same, and the liturgical action basically remains the same as well. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. It's the same number of swings, basically in the same directions, except for the second triplet of swings is done from the back of the altar. With the advent of Vatican II and the introduction of the new Roman rites, as well as the introduction of the 1979 prayer book in the Episcopal Church, some of the traditional ways of using incense have disappeared. For example, the Romans have eliminated the difference between double and single swings. They have eliminated the difference in hierarchy as far as the incensation of clergy in the sanctuary and of the people. If you are in a tradition that follows the modern Episcopalian or modern Roman rite, the incensation of the altar is very simple. You will have no crucifix or candles placed at the back of the altar. You will have, of course, the stack or the skeleton set up for the celebration of Holy Communion. But there are no other liturgical items. At the beginning of the service, there are none. In that case, the thurifer would simply cense the altar, walking around it again in a counterclockwise direction, so that there is no special number at all to be used. And if you will see the celebrants using this tradition, simply walking around the altar, censing it in this fashion. Now, on some occasions, of course, a processional cross is used, and that processional cross, in some instances, is placed on the side of the altar. In that case, again, with a traditional touch, you would start the incensation of the altar. When you come to the processional cross, you would also give it 3 swings, either single or double, and then proceed to cense the remainder of the altar as you were going along in course. Sometimes the processional cross may be placed behind the altar, and under the modern Roman rules, whether or not the processional cross is censed is under the discretion of the minister. So we've tried to cover all the different possibilities that you may encounter, whether it is a fixed altar against the east wall, where people are praying towards the east, or if it is a freestanding altar. And again, there is a traditional way, an old way of censing a freestanding altar, as well as one that follows the more modern liturgical standards in practice in Rome and in some other Anglican bodies. All of these techniques are illustrated in your workbook so that the number of swings and the direction of the swings is clearly seen and designated. This video has been hopefully a help to you in a practical demonstration of how to cense an altar, how to handle the censer and things of that nature. Of course, you need to be careful because sometimes censers can fall off of their stands. Sometimes celebrants or thurifers can become too excited and actually hit someone with the censer. If very hot, you need to be very careful. In fact, we have burn marks up here in the sanctuary of this church where someone spilled the charcoal out of the censer during worship. So be very careful when handling it. Make sure that if you're training someone to use it, that you give them plenty of practice to get the weight of the censer right, and understand exactly what happens when the charcoal is lit. I remember once when I was in Africa and offered incense at an outdoor celebration of our church in Ghana. Their censer was a bowl about this big, filled not with charcoal but with wood, which was on fire. And the spoon for the boat was bigger than a tablespoon. I was holding the censer and put the incense into that large thurible, and it almost choked me to death because the smoke ascended instantly. So make sure that you have plenty of practice with whatever censer that you have. Also, some practical tips. I would suggest that you buy incense that is mostly frankincense, the real thing. There are lots of different scents and perfumes and spices that are mixed with frankincense, and you no doubt by trial and error will find out what you like the best and what is the best fit for your church. There are also types of incense sold that help people with allergies get over all of the smoke that may be trapped in the room, especially if you are establishing a mission church. You may not have a large church with a high ceiling. If you have a high ceiling, no one really gets bothered by the smoke of the incense. But in quite a number of our mission churches, perhaps in your case, you have a smaller room, one with a low ceiling. Be aware that people may have a reaction to the incensation because of that. Also, too, try to stay away from mixes of incense that have a great deal of wood resin or wood particles. MK, for example, is one that has a lot of wood particles in it. Those tend to be smokier, and so you need to be very careful when using those types of blends of incense. And finally, I want to point out to you that we have also included the very practical tips in your workbook, diagrams for what we've gone over in this video, and we have also given you in your textbook for this particular liturgical training a complete look at the use of incense in the liturgy from an Anglican perspective, and so I hope you enjoy that. This demonstration here of how to cense an altar is produced by St. Andrew's Theological College and Seminary. If you have enjoyed this, and if this is of practical value to you, you need to know that St. Andrew's has as its mission the training of priests for service in the church. And this is just one small part of what kinds of training you can receive at St. Andrew's for all of the liturgical needs of the church. So I hope that this has been a blessing to you, and I pray that the Lord would bless your ministry in the future. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Amen.
Let my prayer arise in thy sight as this.